The depths of the ocean contain many interesting sounds, as you are about to hear.
hppodcraft.com.
All right, we are rolling. Ready?
On August 20, 1917, I, Karl Heinrich Graf von Altberg-Ehrenstein, Lieutenant Commander in the Imperial German Navy and in charge of the submarine U-29, deposit this bottle and record in the Atlantic Ocean. I do so because of my desire to set certain unusual facts before the public, a thing I shall not, in all probability, survive to accomplish in person, since the circumstances surrounding me are as menacing as they are extraordinary, and involve not only the hopeless crippling of the U-29, but the impairment of my iron German will in a manner most disastrous.
Yeah.
His iron German will.
Oh, no, I think it's going to fail him.
When I heard that, it reminded me of that old Ginsu Knives commercial where they say, Ginsu knives are better than any knives, and they show that sad German chef, and he goes, even our German knives? It just didn't occur to him that his German knives would not be as good as another culture's knives.
No, not at all. Well, that's an excerpt from, read by Andrew Lehman.
That's right.
From H.P. Lovecraft's The Temple.
And we're reading it here on the H.P. Lovecraft Literary Podcast.
hppodcraft.com, and I'm Chris Lackey.
And I'm Chad Pfeiffer, and we are your hosts.
Yeah, so get ready to be blown away by, I think, so far, my favorite Lovecraft story. I mean, so far as in our sequential...
Yeah.
That's one of the things, I don't know, we get a lot of posting on the discussion forum and things where people ask us, like, are you doing this in a particular order? And we are. We're doing this in order of how they were written.
Right.
So
As we know.
as we know of, yeah, because some of these are a little ambiguous about when they were written, but
But it's not necessarily publication dates or anything like that.
No.
It's when
In
they
fact, we are going by an awesome website, the hplovecraft.com.
Yes.
Which we're using it's a great repository.
It's a great repository of information about this writer.
Yes, it's absolutely wonderful. I felt like I wanted to say suppository, and I'm like, wait, that's
No,
not...
that would not be the correct thing. Well, so The Temple.
The Temple,
is another World War I setting. It's 1917, and this lieutenant commander has dropped a message in a bottle. I don't think it's a love note.
No.
So the lieutenant begins to recount what it is he's talking about after this first paragraph.
Yep.
He says,
On the afternoon of June 18, as reported by wireless to the U-61 bound for Kiel, we torpedoed the British freighter Victory, New York to Liverpool, permitting the crew to leave in boats in order to obtain a good cinema view for the Admiralty records. The ship sank quite picturesquely, bow first, the stem rising high out of the water whilst the hull shot down perpendicularly to the bottom of the sea. Our camera missed nothing, and I regret that so fine a reel of film should never reach Berlin. After that, we sank the lifeboats with our guns and submerged.
What an asshole.
I know. So actually, that's an excellent illustration of that and the Iron German Will thing, that this character, the lieutenant, I mean, he really is a character.
Yeah.
He's got he's superior, he's cruel.
Uh-huh.
I mean, it actually surprised me when I got to the end of that paragraph.
Yeah.
I thought, you know what we really want is the image of that ship going down.
Yeah.
We don't need to harm the people. But
No.
then they gunned them all down
Yeah.
as they were leaving.
Because he wanted the nice film footage of the ship
Right.
sinking and everybody getting away, and he's like, okay, cool, we got the footage, now let's kill everyone.
Yeah,
Like,
but
what?
there's an odd circumstance that arises because of that gunning down.
Exactly.
When we rose to the surface about sunset, a seaman's body was found on the deck, hands gripping the railing in curious fashion. One more victim of the unjust war of aggression which the English pig dogs are waging upon the fatherland. Our men searched him for souvenirs and found in his coat pocket a very odd bit of ivory carved to represent a youth's head crowned with laurel. My fellow officer believed that the thing was of great age and artistic value, so took it from the men for himself. How it had ever come into the possession of a common sailor, neither he nor I could imagine.
So he found this little like a statue, statue. It's a child's head, and it's got like a wreath around its
Right,
noggin.
and it really creeps everybody out on board right away. And they ditch the sailor that they found on the top of the ship, and when they throw him over, people really get freaked
People flip out.
Yeah.
The fellow's eyes had been closed, but in the dragging of his body to the rail they were jarred open, and many seemed to entertain a queer delusion that they gazed steadily and mockingly at Schmidt and Zimmer, who were bent over the corpse. The boatswain Mueller, an elderly man who would have known better had he not been a superstitious Alsatian swine, became so excited by this impression that he watched the body in the water and swore that after it sank a little, it drew its limbs into a swimming position and sped away to the south under the waves.
Oh,
Yeah, that's like horror movies.
oh, that's some
man.
creepy stuff, man.
It really is.
He's like just pretending to be dead, and then when he gets in the water, he just swims off.
Yeah.
Ugh.
I was able to be a little less creeped out when I thought of it in a comical fashion. Like, he opened his eyes and then did a backstroke really fast, like, away. But yeah, that's pretty nasty stuff. And it really throws the crew members off. Between seeing that and that little figurine.
Yeah, little figuring. For some reason, everybody is kind of off their nut after
They
this.
have bad dreams that night. Some of them are sick.
Yep.
And the submarine commander decides to descend, and they're just going to wait around because they have intelligence that the dossier.
Yeah, well, it's an American ship?
It's either a British or an American ship.
Right.
It's unclear to me, and I don't know if it's a real ship, but it was mentioned by agents in New York, and so they know it might be coming through there, so they descend to wait for it.
Yeah.
And the next morning, everything is worse. The boatswain starts freaking out.
Mm-hmm.
He was in a detestably childish state and babbled of some illusion of dead bodies drifting past the undersea portholes. Bodies which looked at him intensely and which he recognized, in spite of bloating, as having seen dying during some of our victorious German exploits. And he said that the young man we had found and tossed overboard was their leader.
Yeah, this guy's flipping out. Like, so the people that they've killed, could be a little bit of guilt, like his mind's playing some tricks on him.
A little bit of hallucination as a result of something.
Yeah.
In the water.
Could be something in the water, something not in. Maybe it's just in his mind. That's what our lieutenant commander believes.
Right, and he takes pretty aggressive action on the boatswain right away. They have him whipped.
Yeah. Wow.
For inciting the other men. And the other men, they got together and they suggested that the lieutenant get rid of that little figurine.
Right. And well, those two guys that threw the body into the water are really are taking ill and getting sick.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. And the men that were sick the night before, they whipped the boatswain, but and then the next day, the men who had been sick, they're now just insane.
Yeah. That
results in some action, some pretty even more stringent action.
Yeah, he freaking kills the dudes.
Yeah, our protagonist shoots them, and he regrets it, or he regrets that there wasn't a doctor to treat them. He says since German lives are precious.
German lives are precious, but you got to maintain the crew.
Yeah, and it's actually creepy the way Lovecraft writes it, because he doesn't say explicitly what he does.
No, he just kind of implies it.
He just says he took drastic steps, and those men are no more.
Yep.
It's like 10 little Indians right now on this submarine.
Yeah.
But people just are going crazy or getting shot or disappearing. And lots of dolphins are showing up around it.
Yeah, lots, and they're causing problems. In fact,
well, the dossier doesn't show up, and so they're all kind of happy about that.
Oh, right, yeah, they're because for some reason they were really dreading having another confrontation.
Right,
and
since it doesn't show up, they can go back to Germany.
Yeah,
which is probably the best treatment for everybody. But those dolphins, it says
at noon, June 28, we turned northeastward. And despite some rather comical entanglements with the usual masses of dolphins, were soon underway.
I really wish he'd explain more the comical nature of the entanglement.
What comical entanglement possibly could have happened?
It was really quite funny, One of the dolphins painted a picture, so it looked like there was a woman on the beach, and he put it outside the porthole, and I opened it up, and all this water comes streaming in, and we're all wet and slipping around. All I could do is shake my head. It was delightful, actually. It was very comical. But suddenly, there's an explosion in the engine room in the middle of the night.
Yeah.
And the engineers who work there instantly killed.
Yeah, they're dead. The engineers are killed, and nobody really understands exactly what happened.
Yeah, this is really bad. They have some power, and they have the ability to rise and submerge.
Yes.
That's it. They can't really go anywhere.
No. But what happens is there's an American ship that comes by, and all the crew's like, we need to surrender so we can survive, because we're not going to get rescued.
Bang!
Yep, he kills those guys.
Well, he shoots one of them, and the others quiet down.
That's right. Yes.
Yeah, but I think their end is in sight.
Yeah, he kills those guys.
And they submerge so that the American ship can't see them.
Yeah.
That's got to be terrible if you're on the crew of that ship. So frustrating.
I know there's a certain amount of loyalty that needs to go on, but If I was in that crew, I might be thinking a little mutiny myself. Yeah. Especially with all the craziness that's going on.
Right. Well, especially will they submerge, and unfortunately, there's a little more mechanical difficulty. And guess what? Can't go back to the surface.
Yep.
Can't go back up. They're essentially imprisoned underwater, and now they're just waiting to die. Which, there's a told you so moment there. The sailors, and that night,
the 6 remaining pigs of seamen, suspecting that we were lost, had suddenly burst into a mad fury at our refusal to surrender to the Yankee battleship 2 days before, and were in a delirium of cursing and destruction. They roared like the animals they were and broke instruments and furniture indiscriminately, screaming about such nonsense as the curse of the ivory image and the dark, dead youth who looked at them and swam away. I shot all 6 men, for it was necessary, and made sure that none remained alive.
There you go. That's when he kills everybody.
Yeah. It's, he's very dedicated to the Germans, and they will not surrender, and they go down with the ship.
And honestly, Pratt's, in my opinion, a merciful death.
Yeah, it's true.
Because I don't know if I would rather just be sitting down in that submarine just waiting to die.
It's horrible.
Oh, can't imagine.
They're slowly sinking southward and downward.
Yeah, well, they're picked up by a current.
Yeah.
And a current that isn't. It doesn't make any sense. It's not on any of the maps. It's not. The dolphins are still following them, and as they keep descending, the dolphins are following it as they keep going deeper and deeper. And he's like, wait, dolphins can't survive at these depths.
Yeah.
What's going on?
And the other Lieutenant Clenzy starts hitting the sauce.
Oh, yeah, he starts drinking.
There was one line I like, he said, where he says there's some equipment left for them to use that hadn't suffered from the crazy antics of the other men. This is more like, they're always making big pastries with the life preservers and getting out the oars and smacking each other's backsides. It's really crazy. It's crazy antics. With those seamen that they shot, they expel their bodies and they just drift.
Yeah.
And Clenzy, who our protagonist is quick to point out, is not Prussian.
No.
He's not of totally pure German.
No.
Ancient stock, so he's freaking out a little bit.
Yeah,
That's
he's not. If he was pure German stock, he would be,
he could take this easily.
Yeah, easily. This would be nothing to him.
They look around the kind of sea life around them with the giant.
Yeah, they've got a spotlight, a big spotlight that works, and so they're able to look, and they see all these,
well, they see those dolphins that you mentioned.
Yeah, the dolphins. They see other creatures, and
right, and then when they get inside of the ocean floor, and Clenzy sees something.
He was puzzled by one thing. A peak of solid matter, protruding above the ocean bed nearly 4 feet at its apex, about 2 feet thick with flat sides and smooth upper surfaces, which met at a very obtuse angle. After a while, he began to shudder and turned away from the scene as if frightened, yet could give no explanation save that he was overcome with the vastness, darkness, remoteness, antiquity, and mystery of the ocean abysses.
Maybe it was the same kind of stone idol we saw in Dagon.
Could be. One of the things too, upcoming when Clenzy's going a little nuts. He's got.
Yeah. After he sees that, it's a pretty quick path.
Yeah, he's going nuts. He's flipping out, and one of the things that the narrator he says that one of the little quotes he likes because. He's German. He's going to suffer through this and be a badass,
Right.
And then he says, "For myself, I was proud, knowing how the fatherland would revere my memory and how my sons would be taught to be men like me."
Yeah. I guess. Yeah, that is somebody maybe you would want to be in a position of struggle with because he'd have a very practical mind. But if you freaked out even a little bit, he would shoot you in the face.
I don't know if I'd like that. I think it would be tough to maintain composure at this point.
Yeah.
And he's not forgiving in any way.
And he especially doesn't like it when Clenzy starts screaming.
He is calling. I hear him. We must go.
Yeah. Not good.
Not good. Well, Clenzy, he starts saying, we have to go. We have to go and kill ourselves and offer ourselves up to the ocean as, repentance. And
he takes that ivory image out.
Yeah, he takes
saying, we gotta go.
And he says, if we don't do this, then we're forever damned. We're gonna be cursed. And if we repent right now, that's our only hope.
Right.
And
he threatens to jettison them both, but our guy, manages to talk him down.
Yeah. Well, he
slowly
talks him down, but then he realizes, you know what? He's probably going to kill himself, so I'm going to let him do it anyway.
Yeah.
And but I'm not going to go because I think he's,
Yeah.
He's nuts, and he just figures, well, if I'm going to deal with him, then that's the issue. So.
Right. So he helps him.
He helps him go in the thing, and it shoots him out, and then he goes the spotlight because he wants to see the body. He wants just to see, to
confirm
that he dies. And when he goes out and looks, he can't find him. He's like gone.
Yeah.
What happened?
I don't know. Well, he keeps searching the ocean floor with this searchlight, over the bit of time,
because the boat's still drifting. It hasn't yet hit the bottom.
And as they're
slowly,
as they approach, he trains it, and he notices the floor descending rapidly, as if it's like carved out on purpose.
Yeah.
Into this little valley, and he floods it with light, and he sees this kind of ruined city.
Yeah. And I think he calls it Atlantis, or he thinks it's Atlantis.
Yeah, it's marble buildings of weird architecture and temples and villas.
Yeah,
and you're absolutely right. He says,
confronted at last with the Atlantis I had formerly deemed largely a myth, I was the most eager of explorers. At the bottom of that valley, a river once had flowed. For as I examined the scene more closely, I beheld the remains of stone and marble bridges and sea walls, and terraces and embankments once verdant and beautiful.
the dolphins finally clear out.
Yeah, they take off. They don't have any business. Yeah. None of this stuff. Even though they stayed with the boat for
way too
long. They were under deep pressure and underwater.
Yeah, they should have imploded.
Yeah, or just suffocated from not breathing.
Yeah.
Because they have to go up to the surface to get air. But
the U-boat finally settles on a little place next to the valley wall.
Was it like a plaza? I thought it was
I'm sorry, you're right, a plaza. Yeah. And from here, he sees
this temple.
The temple.
Yeah.
The temple of the story title. It's a giant building decorated with big sculptures of sort of pre-Grecian figures.
Yeah, and it kind of hints to a culture, a civilization that existed before history. Right. Like that it's ancient in some way, but it is familiar.
Yeah.
In a certain way. So he basically is just waiting to die in the bottom in the submarine, and he decides he wants to. He's kind of beckoned. He's kind of called, not audibly.
Yeah, well, he can't. The temple has a giant door in it, and he's training the light on it, and he can't see in there.
Yeah.
But
it's open. It's like
it's open. Yeah.
The door is open, but the way that he is, he can't see exactly what's in there.
Yeah.
So he decides he's going to check it out.
Yeah, he says, I'm going to be the first German. He accepts his fate.
Yeah.
And he says, I'm going to be. You know what I am going to do though? I'm going to be the first German to check out this ancient civilization.
Yep.
I'm going to be explorer. So he
puts on the
deep sea diving
suit, and he goes in and he goes out to check it out.
He goes out to explore with his flashlight, and he kind of looks at the sculptures that he finds and ancient coins, and he's really testing his stuff out. He's going through the city, and he doesn't quite get to the temple yet. That's his first exploration, and then he comes back in. Everything worked. It's awesome, and then he decides he's going to explore the temple the next day. But unfortunately, he finds that he doesn't have enough power. So he's going to go out again, but he can't go into the temple because he can't get light in there. Yeah. So he trains the spotlight on it, and as he looks into the temple door just kind of descends into this abyss, and as he looks at it, it sort of fills him with terror, and he begins to understand maybe what Clancy was going through. He gets back to the boat, and he's considering suicide, and he falls asleep, and the battery's completely died.
Yeah,
he's completely in darkness.
And he talks about when he wakes up and he's in darkness, he thinks that he can kind of see things, but he goes, it must be a hallucination. I must be going nuts. I can't really see things because I'm in complete darkness, and unfortunately the air is lasting longer than the power does in the battery, so he can still breathe.
Yeah, but he can't see anything.
But he can't see. But
and he does in the darkness, though. He remembers, or it suddenly occurs to him that the carvings on the temple are the same as the carvings on that little figurine.
Right.
That went out the porthole with Clancy. He says,
I was a little dazed by this coincidence, but did not become terrified. It is only the inferior thinker who hastens to explain the singular and the complex by the primitive shortcut of supernaturalism.
Yeah.
This guy's a badass, though. Skeptic, because even in a situation like that, he's still saying, I'm not going to make some crazy supposition about this.
I gotta say, that's some good skepticism there. He's being, it's like, I don't have explanations, but I'm not going to jump to conclusions and say that whatever it is that Clancy thought it was, or I'm going to just be objective and keep my mind open and see
until that phosphorescent glow starts coming through the water, and it's he's freaked out because he had taken some bromide or something for his headache, and then puts the glass down, and then he kind of sees that that glow is illuminating the inside of the submarine. And then he's like, I must be hallucinating that. But then he reaches out for his glass, and it's exactly where he sees it at. So he knows it's real light.
Like, so where is this light coming from?
Yeah, and then there's this sound.
It was an aural delusion, a sensation of rhythmic melodic sound as of some wild yet beautiful chant or choral hymn coming from the outside through the absolutely soundproof hull of the U-29.
So he hears something. Like a tune, like a melody, like maybe a siren song. It's just calling to him.
He's pretty sure he's going insane. But he goes around to look at the city. I mean, there's phosphorescences in the water, but the city itself is mostly invisible in the dark. But
not the temple.
What I did see was not spectacular, not grotesque or terrifying. Yet it removed my last vestige of trust in my consciousness. For the door and windows of the undersea temple, hewn from the rocky hill, were vividly aglow with a flickering radiance as from a mighty altar flame far within.
Yeah, so there's something inside the temple that's glowing. It's calling.
Ooh, once he sees that.
Yep. That's it. He goes, you know what? I'm done now.
Yeah.
But what I'm going to do, since I know I'm going to die, I'm going to put on the suit, and I'm just going to go into that temple, and I'm just going to sit in there, and whatever fate is going to happen to me, it will happen.
Exactly. And, even though his iron German will is folding under this spell, he has a good sense to do that. So he writes his account in the bottle.
Yep.
He drops it in there.
He drops it in, and assuming that because it ends up on a shore somewhere. That's where we found this bottle and read this message. So he shoots the bottle off out into the water, and we assume that
he prepares his suit.
Yeah, he hears some kind of some laughter, as he's writing this, and he thinks that the laughter must be coming from his delusion mind.
And then he gets in his suit and says,
I have no fear. What I have seen cannot be true, and I know that this madness of my own will at most lead only to suffocation when my air is gone. The light in the temple is a sheer delusion, and I shall die calmly, like a German, in the black and forgotten depths. This demoniac laughter which I hear as I write comes only from my own weakening brain. So I will carefully don my suit and walk boldly up the steps into the primal shrine, that silent secret of unfathomed waters and uncounted years.
Yeah, that's the end of the story.
That's the end of the story.
Oh man, I gotta say, this was I was riveted by this story.
I love it. It's a great setting. It's really creepy.
It's got a good character. The lieutenant commander is a really interesting.
He's an actual character.
Yeah, but I mean, he's not just he's evil, obviously, and totally. I don't want to say nationalist. He's got a crazy nationalist.
Well, now I have some criticisms of the story are that his character is kind of laughable, and I will admit that some of the things he says in it are sort of like out of Hogan's Heroes.
Yeah, I mean, there is some people say. I remember one of the criticisms about Lovecraft is that he was kind of a bit of a satire of the German people.
And I think he's trying to be funny on purpose, actually.
Yeah.
When he makes the character say those things, because
right.
You have to remember, I mean, the Germans were not a well-liked people at the time that he wrote this in 1920. And it was the German submarines that brought us into that war when they sank the Lusitania and killed hundreds of Americans. And truth to tell, even to this day, people make fun of the Germans. I mean, when you in the American civilization,
sure,
not too terribly mean, but it's not. There's not a Nazi comment far behind when somebody meets a German person. You know what I mean?
Or at least in the back of their minds. You know what I mean? Like,
and so
German Nazi.
And I think he achieves the desired effect because every time he called somebody an Alsatian swine or talked about their impure blood, I chuckled, I laughed at him.
Yes. Oh, yeah. You're definitely laughing at him. But what's interesting about it is a lot of the things that he does, I understand why he does them.
Yeah. They're wartime necessities.
Yeah. And I mean, not that I personally would do anything like that.
Sure.
I would have said, yeah, we surrender. We're all going to die, and I want to keep my men alive because.
It's not unrealistic what he did.
No. What he did, made sense coming from the kind of personality that this guy had, and it is really cool that. As much as he's kind of an evil character, he keeps it together. In this unwinnable situation, he really makes the most of it.
He really does.
And that's kind of impressive and cool. And
so it makes him kind of a complicated character.
Yeah, I kind of like him a little bit at the end.
Sure.
but he's totally evil.
Yeah.
By what I...
Oh, it's so good.
And it's just the way things are revealed and all these other characters. And this is really one of the first stories, because I read this a long time ago, and I didn't think much of it at the time, but, now reading it when I'm older, it's like, this would be a really cool movie.
It would. The setting is great, and I would love to see almost, a sort of artsy treatment of it, where there was a guy walking around in that diving suit in a Atlantis-style city underwater. Man, I would pay $10, $13 to see that. They should make this movie.
Most of it's takes place on a submarine, and there's a few places, like having them when they're up, above water, and they're watching the boat sink. When they go out, they got a camera guy rolling film just to get it, and he's like, okay, great, got that picture. Let's kill everybody.
Yeah.
This guy gets out and with the machine gun and starts mowing people down. That would be like an awesome scene.
It
you know
really
what I mean?
would.
Where you're like, well, these guys are terrible.
And there's lots of horror movie things in here, actually, that are written into the story. Because when the sailors are seeing their own victims fly past the portholes, fly past, but drift past roll. I mean, I saw that cinematically immediately.
Oh, absolutely.
Their faces rolling past those portholes.
Yeah, it felt
it's
very
almost
cinematic.
It's a character building thing that happens there, because clearly there's something supernatural. There's a call from below, from that temple, and they're sort of drifting through it in that unnatural stream. But it's making them internalize some of that and look into their own guilt and their own horrors of war and see those images.
It's really cool.
It's great. It reminded me of Unforgiven, the Clint Eastwood movie, when he keeps dreaming and seeing the faces of the people he's shot and killed. Dagon tread over some of the same ground, and Call of Cthulhu will tread over some of the same ground again. The big difference here, is it's a human society down there. Of some kind, which was pretty interesting. Yeah. And how that society fell, I'm not sure what happened to it, but it's a prehistoric kind of civilization. And also just the setting is so unique.
Yeah, Ken Hyten, in his book, Troy did Lovecraft, he just mentions that he did a little research, and I did some too, and this might actually be the first submarine horror story.
Really?
Yeah, submarines are pretty new.
True, yeah.
You know what I mean?
And that was the first time that they were being used with that many people piled into them to make war.
This thing was published wasn't published until 1925, but it was written written in 1920, but they think. I'm not exactly sure.
Since then, I mean, it's a buried alive story, but it's being buried alive in the ocean and slowly.
Which is a totally unique thing.
It really is.
That didn't exist before. A submarine, a circumstance where you're with a group of people in a machine underwater, this type of thing didn't happen. This is because of technology, humans are put in circumstances.
In pretty horrific alien circumstances. Being imprisoned alone in a vessel that will protect you as you slowly drift towards the ocean floor is a startlingly horrifying circumstance.
Oh, yeah.
It's pretty neat.
I hate gushing so much over a story.
But it's a fascinating thing, putting somebody in isolation and you could argue that some of the stuff is really, truly just hallucinations that these men are experiencing because of some of the trauma they've been through. Yeah.
This could easily... I mean, this is one of those where it could be... there's really nothing actual supernatural that happens.
Yeah.
Nobody turns into a monster or, shoots the laser beams out of their eyes or anything like that. It's all could be just people's conscience getting to them and them going crazy because of the things that they've done in the past.
Like that Sam Rockwell movie that's out now, Moon. I haven't seen it yet, but I think he's in isolation on the moon, 233,000 miles from the Earth, and starts hallucinating things because of that isolation. And this is that genre. I believe this is the first story he published in Weird Tales.
Yes. Yeah. And it wasn't published in any of the amateur presses because it was long.
This has that feel of a story that, when you're a boy, you would really like. It's a boy's story because there's adventure on the high seas, and then it slowly turns into this really eternal, horrific thing, But I could understand why a popular magazine that publishes fiction for, adventure readers would latch on to this. Versus The Tree or, some of these previous efforts.
This is real visceral. I get it. I'm on board the whole time. I remember, when I first read it, I just was like, oh, wow, oh, neat, oh, cool. Whoa, gosh, wow. I was just, it wasn't, a lot of times when I read Lovecraft, I have to read things over a few times before I understand what the heck's going on. And And this time, the first read, I got it. Like,
Right.
It was all there. And all right, well, enough gushing.
Enough gushing, but and that's all I really.
Yeah, that's all I gotta say. That we're gonna wrap this one up really quick here.
Next week we've got Arthur German,
Arthur German, I believe it's pronounced,
and otherwise known as the White Ape, or
Yes,
I think it
yes.
has a longer title: The Facts
It's-
Concerning the Family of Arthur German.
Arthur German and his family.
Yeah.
The facts concerning Arthur German and his family and their friends.
Their friends
and
yeah.
the next door neighbor that they don't really talk too much anymore
Right.
after that incident
Yeah,
happened.
exactly. That's the original title.
That's the original title. Yeah.
So hopefully we'll hear you. We'll see you.
We'll see. Yeah. Well,
You will hear us.
You will hear us next week.
Yeah, and keep up the comments, guys. If we don't get to respond to all of them, we certainly enjoy reading them.
Oh
and,
yeah,
compiling them.
getting the feedback and just kind of helps us, try and make a better show.
Yeah.
So thanks for all the comments.
Smart
Forums
people
are,
out there.
are picking up,
Yeah.
which is pretty exciting. And I guess another forum of our podcast has been started on another completely different forum, the D20 Radio forums.
Cool.
Have started talking about us, so that's really cool.
Yeah.
I want to plug Andrew Lehman. Who
Yeah.
is-
Thanks again, Andrew. Great to have him back and
always
reading.
Does such an amazing job, and he's a great guy. I love him, and
There you go.
there you go. That's it. I'm Chris Lackey,
I'm Chad Pfeiffer.
and this is the HP Lovecraft Literary Podcast.
HPPodcraft.com.
hppodcraft.com.